It has been a while, but rather than lament about the exponentially increasing speed of time, let's talk game dev. There's been a lot of changes on Color War, and I know for people following it closely it can be a little bit frustrating not having a devlog for over a year, so I'm going to try to cover everything I've changed in this video, which is a lot, so stay till the end. Also, I took a bit of a break working on Color War to make some other games, the main reason being that for a while I wasn't super satisfied with the overall state of Color War. I didn't feel like I was really able to develop what I wanted and was sacrificing my vision for it, but now I'm a lot more confident and a lot less Now, I recognize that I've often talked about how disruptive it can be to restart the work on a game because of unhappiness with the current product, but in this case, I felt it kind of necessary. I made a lot of things more clean, polished, and less likely to implode on the double tap of spacebar. Here are some of the systems I made. The first one, and the main one, is I completely redid how dialogue works, making it significantly easier to not only write dialogue, but to actually put it in the game. It used to be super clunky and it would mess up really easily, and sometimes it would just skip the first piece of text, and sometimes it just wouldn't show the text at all, and sometimes... Main point is where I used to have everything put together into one system, music changing, sound effects, animation, dialogue, zooming. It's all separated now, which allows me to do a lot more things I couldn't really do previously, like have certain areas where the camera doesn't move, change the zoom more dynamically, and add more sound effects, and really just add a lot more life to the entire camera system. And for anybody who's played the demo, you've likely already seen this. Along with that, I can dynamically change the music during text now. I can do a lot more things with the animations, and I've given myself a lot more creative freedom when it comes to dialogue. Another thing I changed pretty drastically was the boss battle system. In the past, the difficulty only affected the health you had to start with, but now it actually affects how the boss battles play out. For example, in easy mode, this battle looks like this. While in hard mode, it looks like this. So the difficulty will actually significantly change the gameplay, making hard mode the incredibly difficult mode that I intended the game to be originally, while also giving the option to make it easier for people who are more interested in the story or just having a hard time. To accompany that, there's also a screen that appears every 10 deaths that lets you change the difficulty if you're having a hard time or just want to give yourself a challenge. You'll notice a lot of visual changes as well, where the game used to look like Baby's first pixel art, now it looks like Baby's second pixel art. I tried to make the perspective work a little more and keep pixel sizes consistent. I've struggled with that a lot in the past, and art has never really been my strong suit, so I'm trying my best, and if I hear one more person say that this is an Napstip look, I am deleting the game. The interact box no longer looks like a pop-up ad, and instead more like an animation from a PowerPoint made by a kid who really needs to get an A right now because the semester is about to end, and if they don't get an A in all of their classes, then they won't be able to go on the special Disneyland trip that everyone is supposed to get at the end of the year, which means they'll miss the last chance to see their friends until the next year, and nobody will love them ever again. Or just, you know, a fancier pop-up. A lot of the systems I've talked about were fixed in a fairly similar way, something that if you're a programmer, you've either heard a million times or need to hear. Don't repeat yourself. It's easily the most important methodology that applies to most of programming. Now, this phrase can mean a lot of different things, and it really depends on what you're working on. It usually, in this context, means to just not repeat code and to make your project as modular as possible so it's easily usable as well as readable. For me, in the context of game dev, it means if I'm using a system that I designed and it's tedious or annoying in any way, I've done a bad thing and I should feel bad. If I ever find myself repeating the same action to the point of monotony, I try to think if there's a way that I can automate it to be done for me. And the cool part is, if you like programming like me, it'll be more fun to automate it than to keep repeating yourself anyways. Now, one of the things I've had problems with in the past while making Color War devlogs is writing the line between content and spoilers. And going forward, I think I've kind of figured out how I'm going to handle it. For the most part, I'm going to keep it all spoiler-free and focus on the actual areas of the game and how I design them. For example, later in the game you're going to the Crystal Caverns, and I think I'll show how I design it and some of what you do in it, but I'll likely try to keep footage of the battles to a minimum, just to keep it interesting when you actually get the game. Aside from that though, there is some new content that's pretty exciting to see. Starting off, I've got an entirely new boss battle that only occurs in the demo version of the game.
Link in the description, check it out on Steam.
But I added this rock battle to serve as a tutorial for the demo. It just does some smashing, these walls come down, it pew-pews, depending on difficulty. He falls over and then it ends. It's kind of cool, but it's real easy. The next thing I added is more so something that I just finished. I have a full settings menu now, which really isn't something that exciting, but back when I was first working on the game, this seemed like an impossible task. I've also got a start menu and all the expected things you would find in a menu.
Oh, what's that?
Up, not yet. If you want to see what's in that menu, then you gotta be an epic plasma gamer. Wait, hold on, you're joking. You don't know what a plasma gamer is? Oh, well, it's only the coolest game dev community out there.
Beside all those other ones.
All you gotta do is hit that subscribe button and use one of your assumed appendages to click on that bell button so you can see the light and bask in its radiance. And only the most epic of plasma gamers are over on the Discord server. I did a Steam key giveaway right here on the Discord, so if you want to keep up with us and maybe get giveaways in the future, head on over there. Link in the description. There's also some things that I just kind of needed to do but didn't. For example, there's a death counter now, which, while it isn't the biggest thing, I think it can lead to some funny outcomes. And a health counter where you can see how much health you have left. I might change this up later because I'm not super sure about it, but I'm glad that it's there. Now, I won't get into it too deep because it's a lot, but I completely redid the start of the game. All the areas are different, some of the art, most of the dialogue. I've redone it to more so fit how I want the game to feel, as well as making it more in line with how I want the game to progress. Now, I'll be transparent for a second. When I first started, I didn't really have much of an idea of what the story was going to be for the game. I had a loose concept of this artifact of power called the Crystal of Color, something smashing, and then people scrounging up the parts for power, but I wasn't super sure how all of it was going to connect. So while I took the time off, I actually stopped to write down everything into a book of sorts. Don't worry, this isn't an ad, I'm not selling it. And if you plan on having a story in your game, or you're just a programmer like me who wants to make games, I really recommend this. Obviously, everyone has their own workflow, but it's been so refreshing to revisit this project knowing exactly what I'm doing and how it will all progress. It means that I can focus more on making the game actually fun to play and not have to worry about hiding story everywhere, because I know where and when things will happen. But yeah, when I started this project, you could ask me a pretty simple question about the story like, does the main character have a name? And I'd be like, well, I don't know, maybe, and pretend like I was keeping a secret. Okay, now on to the new content. So now when you start, you go talk to the coin man how you do, you have a novel of exposition, you find out you gotta go get the shards, yada yada. You walk outside and piss off nature to the point that it tries to attack you, but thankfully you're good enough at dodging projectiles that nature forgives you. You make your way down the path, and oh no, the town's gone. Anyway, you meet a fish and he's like, I'm gonna fight you, and you're like, okay, but why? And then you fight the fish and the fish is like, yeah, maybe we didn't need to fight. So you go on your way and you have some serious talk with the ghost, and it's time to start your adventure. Except it's not, and you have to find a hat for the ghost because nothing is easy. You find that this crab lady has not only a piece of the deep blue shard, but also the ghost's hat, and they cannot live another second without their hat. So you talk to the crab, and they're mad because they're a crab, and crab dudes are bad, and they yell at you a bunch. But after you get yelled at, you find out you have to rescue their ship from the rat gang. You have a serious chat, and then board the ship, finding all sorts of rat paraphernalia and other things. You then have a fun battle where you fight the rats and get the ship back. Now, the next area is the Crystal Caverns, and that one is a doozy. If you saw the last version of it, it's a bit similar, but it's a lot more fleshed out. I'm trying to make the areas feel more lived in and less linear, so it's more like you're actually exploring a world and not just a hallway. I'll talk about that more in the next video, though. I sincerely appreciate anybody that has stuck around during the channel's hiatus. I've been schooling full-time and working on the side, and I've been trying to focus time that I do have on the game itself rather than the devlogs. However, I do feel like I'm finally in a place that I can successfully work on all of them at the same time. I also feel that doing the devlogs will make it a lot more rewarding to actually work on the game. If you want, check out the demo on Steam. It's free and it has all the new systems I talk about in this video, as well as some exclusive content that you won't be able to find in the main game. And while you're at it, wishlist the game on Steam. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a PowerPoint to make. Later, nerds.